Hey everyone, I'm Abbie, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to some of the most inspiring people I know. We're here to talk about the myth of warrior-style bravery and give you a different picture of what living a brave life really looks like. Are you ready? Let's get on with being brave. Hi there, everyone. I'm Abbie of From the Nest here in Portland, Maine, and I'm here to introduce you to another amazing person I know. Today, it's Jodi Flynn. Jodi is the founder of an amazing podcast called Women Taking the Lead, and she is also the leader of a thriving community of entrepreneurial-minded women. I'm part of that community. Jodi's my business coach. I'm telling you what, she's the bee's knees. So I'm happy to introduce you to her today. Jodi takes pride in walking the talk rather than just talking the talk. And she takes on challenges that push her out of her comfort zone and encourages the type A women that she works with to do the same. So Jodi, thank you so much.
Abbie, thank you so much for the opportunity. This is so fun. I always love to get to hang out with you. So any opportunity, I'm in.
I'm all about it. Even if it's just a phone call, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Climbing Everest, all right. If Abbie's going to be there, we're going.
Yeah, I love that. So the first question I want to talk to you about, and we've never actually talked about this before, so I don't have any idea what your childhood was like. So tell me a little bit about how you grew up and what you were like when you were younger.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I'm one of 8 children.
8?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I'm number 4.
How many brothers? Yeah, I was going to say, how many brothers?
I have 3 sisters, 4 brothers. So we're even like the Brady Bunch. But there's 4 and 4. I am the 4th child, so I'm the middle child. And I often get the follow-up question to that is, well, what was it like growing up with 7 brothers and sisters? And for me, it was very normal like that.
Yeah.
When you're born, that's what you're born into. That's what you live. That's life. And we're all close in age. And so, never lacked for a playmate. And sometimes there were more than you wanted. But at home, I was very outgoing, free to be myself, just living life. And what was interesting, though, is outside of the home, I was very shy. Like when people who weren't in my immediate family would come around, until I got really comfortable with them, I would just get really quiet. And, if adults would, talk to me, because, when you're a small child, you're a little girl, like people are like, oh, you're so cute and all this stuff. And they would come up and talk to me. And like I could feel my face turn red and I didn't know what to say. And I'd hide behind my mom. But this kept up, and I remember, even especially in the 3rd grade, I started to become really self-conscious of myself, and the shyness, really, deep. You could feel it go deep. That feeling.
I remember that moment where I felt like my bubble had been popped, where I was like, oh my gosh. People are actually watching what I'm doing. I'm not in this bubble all by myself.
Right. People
and it
are
was
watching.
around that same time, I think. It was about 3rd grade, 4th grade.
And, there's, I'm sure, all sorts of studies. I was a psychology major, so, took child development. So they're all, reasons for this. And I think especially at that age, you're becoming very aware of who you are in the world and your especially your gender and how you're supposed to behave, as a girl. And, boys and girls start separating and having their own pursuits. And, I just, it was never, I wouldn't say I needed to be diagnosed with anxiety, but it was a very real thing for me. My mother used to wonder, why I was so good at school and so good when I was out of the house and, so boisterous.
And then you just let it all hang out at home.
I let it out at home. And, and that shaped me for most of my formative years. It wasn't till, late high school that I started to feel like, okay, I can start to relax. Like people are accepting me for who I am. They're, interested in what I have to say. One of the strengths of being really shy is you also, because you're not you don't want to be the center of attention. You don't want to be in the middle of the limelight. You kind of hang back and you watch everything.
Listen.
And you listen. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that's when I started becoming fascinated with human behavior and how we developed. And it's no surprise that when I was given an opportunity to be in, it was the first year AP psychology was introduced, was my senior year in high school, and I had a teacher recommend me into that course. I immediately was like, yes, sign me up. And, I was like, wow, this is, I enjoyed school. I like learning, but this was like the first time where I could have just spent all day in school doing psychology.
To everything. I mean, I was a psych major too, so it's looking back on it now, it's so applicable to so many different things in my life. And for me, it's applicable to marketing.
Yes.
Because it's about decision making and risk taking and what types of people will make certain decisions and take these risks and why and how to kind of work with people around those things. And that's so interesting.
Yeah, if marketing wasn't such a big part of my business, I would say it's my hobby. I'm so fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And my first corporate career out of college, because I got my bachelor's in psychology, but then I went into mutual fund operations, and I was
so tell me about that. Time out. Mutual fund operations. That's like
quite a twist.
That's a man's world, really.
Yeah, it wasn't a place I ever envisioned myself in either. I had got my bachelor's in psychology. I was working on my master's in counseling psychology. And about halfway through, it's a long story, but I'll just say halfway through, I realized, wow, the only jobs I'm going to be qualified for are jobs in social work, which is an admirable, honorable profession. And I have a lot of close friends that are social workers, and I love the work that they're doing. But I knew at that time in my life too, and because I'm a sensitive person, I was like, this profession would, eat me up, spit me out, and it wouldn't look good for me on the other side. And I knew, I got to a point where I was this close to having my master's, and I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just sucking the life out of me. It wasn't what I was meant to be doing. Wow. And so I took a job in mutual fund operations just to pay the bills. This was going to be a stepping stone job where I was just going to take it, pay the bills while I figured out what to do next. And what ended up happening, to my complete surprise, was it was an environment I thrived in because I am a type A, high-achieving person coming from a big family. I had no problem working with different personality types, different temperaments, different ages and genders. No problem. I totally got that. And so what ended up, the result of all of this was I was promoted 5 times in 6 years. And what was really funny and why I brought this up is when I was in mutual funds and started doing well, people were like, oh, all that time you spent in college trying to get your, psychology degree, and you're not even using it. I was like, I use that degree every day.
I say the same thing. Every day I use it.
And I meet so many people who are psychology majors who are in different fields, but who all say, wow, what I learned in college really helps me do my job.
As soon as I graduated, I said every single college student should first be a psych major and then choose what else they can do for their second
and then
major.
Specialize.
Then you just understand people and decisions and groups and social stuff so
Why we do
more.
What we do. Yeah, it's amazing.
So speaking of that, I want to know more about how this whole coaching thing came around because honest truth, I didn't know you were a coach for the longest time because I just knew you as this woman who did this podcast and interviewed amazing people. And then I heard your podcast that you did with someone else where you were talking about being a business coach. And I was listening to that on a drive home somewhere. And I paused it and messaged you and said, I want you. I want to hire you right now. I don't care what it is. Because I liked you so much already, just in your energy and how positive you are, but how real you are too. I mean, you don't let me get away with anything, which I really like. But you do it in such a kind way, and there are so many business coaches. So what's different about you? What kind of, drove you to do this? Why are you really doing what you're doing now with your coaching biz?
So coming full circle, in my mutual fund career, had gotten my 5th promotion in 6 years. I was the assistant vice president of corporate quality. Loved my job because it was all about inspiring and motivating people, really using that psychology degree to, because most people in their corporate jobs don't say, wow, when I was 8 years old, this was the job I dreamed about, right? So, but it's like, but we're here, right? And this job is helping you fulfill other things in your life. What can we take from it? And, it's not about, that you might be in your dream job, but you love the people you work with and you're doing good work and you're taking care of people. Let's focus on like what values are being expressed in this job. And so it was perfect. And then we went through an acquisition, and that was not perfect. There was a lot of upheaval, and there were a lot of changes being made where, just like what I said, like things I valued were being taken out and kind of being discarded. And I had this feeling of like, I don't think this is where I'm meant to be anymore.
Signed up for.
Even before that, I'd mastered my job, and I realized I didn't really want to be promoted to the next level. That wasn't the lifestyle of the vice presidents in the company. I, was not enamored. I like my freedom, and, there were just some things that weren't great. So this acquisition comes along, and it's kind of like another, like check mark, like, okay, this is not getting any better. And, had already had the conversation in my head of like, is this it? What could I be doing more?
Else.
Like, could I be doing this, but with more people and out in a bigger arena? And I was at a backyard barbecue, and I met a couple of coaches, and the conversations with them were good conversations, but there was something about them that really caught my attention. They were just so cheerful and present, like really present, like really listening, not just listening, but interested in what I had to say. They asked great follow-up questions. And let's be honest, we were in our 20s at a backyard barbecue. There was like craziness going on all around us. There were a lot of people, there was chaos, and they were very focused. And I was like, I'm really enjoying this conversation. And then I found out somebody else in my life who I really respected and admired, just like a fantastic human being. He had also become a coach. And so I was like, there's something to this. So I started doing my research, and I found a coaching school that I really liked, and I got on their email list so I could get updates from them. And then the first acquisition hit, and I thought, well, maybe this is my opportunity. And, did all the figuring it out. Timing wasn't right, and, different factors had me be like, okay, pause. So kept my job. And then almost back to back, the second acquisition came along, and I was like, oh my God, like this is
I can't ignore this one.
This is awful. I started praying to God, like, please have them fire me, because I can't bring myself to quit. Right?
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that's exactly it. And and it was just rough. And I watched people I worked with for years who I loved just being tormented, and it was just craziness. And but at the end, our jobs ended up being outsourced, but they needed us to stay for 7 months. And they offered better severance packages and better stay-on bonuses than the first acquisition.
That was a gift.
The universe had conspired
to help you to make this coaching thing
and it was one of those things where we've talked about before, where it didn't seem like an act of courage to jump from being there to starting my business. It was just all signs are pointing this way.
There is no other choice. I must. Yes.
One foot in front of the other. We don't know, you don't need to know where the path's going to lead. You just need to take the first step. And that's what I did. And that's how I ended up very blindly and blissfully ignorant. Started my business, but it's evolved over time. And I've now come to a place where, I am where I am, coaching who I'm coaching, and really enjoying the ride.
So awesome. And so the podcast erupted how? I mean, was that something that you were like, oh yeah, I could just interview people and put it online? I mean, you're like 180 something episodes into it, right?
I'm well over 200 now.
God. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks.
200.
I know.
I had no idea.
Yes, and I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary in a couple of weeks.
That's great.
It's exciting. And 3 years ago, where are we? 2017. Yeah. So probably around 2013, I had heard of podcasts, but I wasn't listening to them. And I really, to be honest, I didn't know why you would listen to a podcast. I knew you could access them in iTunes.
Yeah.
I didn't know quite how, but
How?
why? Why would
Yeah,
you do
they need
that?
an
And
app to do that.
you know,
Yeah.
like there's radio, there's TV, there's books. Why a podcast? It didn't make sense to me until a friend of mine started a podcast, and he did very well. And he kind of got the Portland community really excited about podcasts too. And other people who I was networking with and getting to know, they started podcasts, and they, you know, of course, then they were like, you should start a podcast too. You would be really good with this. And I had been on a couple radio shows and had gotten feedback like, you have a great voice. I could listen to you all day. You have this calm presence about you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because on the inside, I'm like, you know, it's good that it translates to calm.
It looks calm on the outside.
Awesome. And so it took a while. It was actually 18 months. I wrote a blog about it because it was the whole, all the like,
18 months of like the voices
from the
in your
decision
head
I'm going
saying,
to
"Oh, my
start a
goodness."
podcast to actually getting it to go live because of
Yeah.
and there's the voices in your head, and then there are the actions you take on the outside where you're like, well, I'll just fill up my calendar, and you know, I can't
totally avoid this. I just don't have time.
I
to
just
do
don't
the
have
show.
time.
That's exactly what happened with me with this show too. It was about
Yes.
3 years from the moment I went, oh, I want to do this thing with brave, creative people and asking them questions, and what might that look like to today. So it's amazing how those things evolve, and when you just open up the space for them, that they grow.
Yes.
Sometimes. So you just did it. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were doing this like in a closet.
pretty much
In your
pretty
apartment.
much in my
you were in a
spare room in my home.
Yeah.
I just set up a microphone, a USB microphone.
No
I mean,
big old fancy, you know,
nope,
sound
no
studio.
studio. I don't even have. I see some people's setups, and I'm like, even their home offices, I'm like, that's schmancy.
Wow.
You know, that's
Yeah.
a really nice setup.
Yeah.
And it's funny when people ask like, oh, well, what do I need to buy? And I'm like, I have a USB microphone plugged into my laptop. I record via Skype with a free software tool you can buy online.
right?
Yeah, Pamela. And then you can edit with Audacity and upload to a hosting website, which syndicates out to iTunes and other places. Trust me, I know I'm making it sound very simple. There's a little more work involved, but at the same time, probably not as much work as most people think it is in their heads.
Yeah, I know. That's what I found too. Is that when you really think about it, it's less than 10 steps. I mean, it's like do this thing.
Yeah.
And after you've done it 200 times,
Right. You
probably
kind of get
pretty
in a
simple.
rhythm after a certain amount of
Yeah.
time. And I belong to a community of podcasters too. So, you know, and I always say that to my clients, like if you're doing something big and unknown, you're not really sure what you're doing, find other people who are doing it and start hanging out with them because they'll tell you what you need to know. And it was similar to, I think, your experience starting this show too. I had some people call me out.
oh yeah, how dare you
Like-
do a TV show? How dare you do a podcast?
Yeah. Right. But then there are also, but you have to be strategic in the other people that you surround yourself by and bring in, because those friends called me out too, but in a different way. Like, what date, Jodi? When? When are
Yes,
you doing
you're gonna
this?
do this. Go
Let's set
for
a
it.
date.
Let's do it now.
And they
Yeah.
made me commit to a date, and I kept to it. And that's why I launched.
Well, and let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that what I'm finding is that the bigger you become, the more people really you're gonna have to kind of slough off, because there are people who can't necessarily take that. There are people that have a hard time and they compare themselves to others. So when you're in that podcasting community, you're not looking around saying, oh, well, their podcast is better than mine, and oh, well, I should do that, and or well, they took my. It's really about how can I learn from these people, and how can
yes.
I use what they're doing to make what I'm doing even better.
Right. And what I found in podcasting communities, and this is probably true in most other communities too, is everybody wants to help. I have very rarely met somebody who is like, you know what, you're just not important enough for me, or, you know, you're not operating at the level I'm operating at. For me, when I've interacted with podcasters, it didn't matter how successful they were. If you asked them a question, they wanted to help you.
It's amazing.
It is amazing, but you have to ask.
Yeah. It's so true, and that's the really scary.
That's the scary part.
Yeah.
You have to recognize that you're worthy enough to ask somebody. Being appreciative of them, right? Right. There's definitely a way you ask in a way that is grateful for their time and respectful of their time as well. But to know that you're worthy to ask the questions you need to ask, and recognizing that most people do want to help.
Yeah, and that you don't have to be perfect and have every single answer, and that sometimes Googling stuff just isn't enough. You really do need a community of people. And as psychology majors, we know that people want to be helpful. They naturally
we're wired
want
for
to
it. We're tribe
and to help.
We're tribe animals. We live in villages. We are wired for it. Yeah. Our brains are wired to reciprocate. And to give.
And I think that's one of the reasons why podcasting has become so popular too, is because it really does create those little communities of like-minded individuals that can all connect and help one another.
Yeah, that's been the great thing for my business, that women who would have never heard of me and I would have maybe never met reach out and say, I heard this episode, it made me cry, or I was able to do that thing I was afraid of, or you're making such a difference in my life. Like, that, right, exactly. That feeling right there. That's like, even when I hit, because we all go through cycles where I hit a point where I'm like, we all feel sorry for ourselves. Like, this is so much work, and I keep going with this. Sometimes you hit dips where you're not getting any results, and then a message like that comes through, and you're like, I can do it again.
That's why I do this.
I can get back in there. It like sends my energy so high.
All right, so the big question, do you consider yourself a brave person?
That's an interesting question. When you asked me on this show, I was like, there are a lot of times I can see in my life where I was being brave. But do I relate to myself as a brave person? I guess I'm just going to have to own it. I really am brave, and but not because I'm special. Like, we all have this in us. But something that happened to me it was when I was getting my certification for coaching. I was on one of the weekends where we had live training, and I remember we had to, if we wanted to, we could share an experience, and I could feel my heart beating, and my stomach started doing flip-flops, and I started sweating. Yes, started to get into the sweats and stuff. And I remember the first thing I said was, I feel like I'm going to have a panic attack, so I know I need to say this.
Yes.
Because for me, and it was like, as I said it, I was like, oh my God, that's the truth. That's a truth bomb right there. And so now I recognize when I'm having that visceral reaction, this is so important. I have to do it.
Yes. Yeah, it's almost like the fear is really just energy. And then as soon as you stop thinking about it as fear and start thinking about it as excitement, or stop thinking about it as like a sign,
right,
that the fear kind of goes away, and you just go, okay, I just have to trust that this is the way to go. But it's a practice, don't you think? I mean, it's not...
I've had enough.
I don't feel brave all the time. I mean, I have these moments where I'm just not braving today.
Right before action, you don't feel brave.
Right.
I'll say this: before I take action, I just feel scared. Right. Yeah. But it's in taking the action
where the bravery.
That it's like, this is what's happening.
Yeah. Well, and I would say putting your ideas, putting your voice, putting your persona out into the world on as big of a platform as you have is huge. And you're allowing other people in turn to be more brave when they come on your show.
Yes, and I'm a huge fan of the Marianne Williamson quote, especially that line that says, as you let your own light shine, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. So that's why I have, the walking my talk is very important to me. I'm a role model for other women. It's not... it's no mistake that women who want to shine more, who want to be up to big things in their life, who want to stop dreaming about things and start doing things, come into my community and want to be a part of it, because that's what we're about. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to cry through it too.
Totally.
But if you're feeling that this is your mission, this is what you're meant to do, well, we're going to hold your hand through it, and we're going to cheer you on, and it's going to be amazing.
So that brings up a point that I think is really great that I haven't thought about yet, which is that bravery is much easier when you have a community and when you have the support.
Right.
Because they can turn around and remind you of how brave you are sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to have people at all stages, like those who've already done it, those who are at the same stage you are where you're just about to do it, and those who are thinking about it too. Because
they remind you.
Sometimes in mentoring other people, it reinforces the purpose behind it and what you're doing and can increase that bravery.
That is so true. That is so true. Okay, lightning round.
Okay,
are you ready?
yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
A little sip here. Okay. So, what do you believe is your biggest creative gift?
My superpower.
Yes. What's your superpower? Your biggest one.
My biggest one, what I'm really good at, is helping other people identify their superpowers. I'm like, I can figure it out. It doesn't take long. Within a quick conversation, I'm like, wow, you're really good at this. People are like, what?
And people never hear that. It's so surprising. They're like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear someone else point out, oh, do you know that you're really good at that thing?
Right.
And we just don't do that with each other.
And I just look for it. When I'm meeting new people, it's just, I'm zeroing in on it. I'm listening to what they say and what they talk about and how they hold themselves. And you can
see
just
people's
pick up on it. Yeah.
Superpower sonar or something. I like that. Okay, so what are you most passionate about right now?
You know, I was thinking about this question because I had the luxury of seeing previous episodes and knowing what was coming.
I love that.
Everything I'm involved in right now, the trend with all of them is providing opportunities for more women to step up, you know, to be empowered, to take on new things, try new things, to really explore who they are and what they want to bring to the world. So I'm super passionate about creating opportunities for that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Great. What do you wish you could do that you haven't done yet?
A live event, like an all-day live event.
Okay, so featuring Jodi.
Yes, I mean there's a vision of this. We haven't like created a project plan or anything because you know I have to-do lists and project plans. But I would like within the next year to create an all-day event for women to come together in one place to, you know, because a lot of what I do happens virtually via Facebook groups or video conferencing and that sort of thing. But nothing trumps the live experience. It doesn't matter how virtual and wired we become, nothing will ever trump that personal experience. So I want to have a day where women can have an experience. And I don't know what it's going to look like.
I'm seeing pillows and
all sorts of fun
blankets
stuff.
And candles and tea and the whole.
You know what's really funny?
Comfort.
I want that, but also in this big, beautiful ballroom too. Like having that mix of like a little bit of glamour, but like down home comfort too.
Oh, I love that. Okay, that's a really good thing to be excited about. I want in on that. Okay. And the biggest thing, I mean, you help other people identify their superpowers and keep them going. How do you keep yourself going in the dark times?
That's a great question. Because the dark times come. We're human and it's part of the human experience. So on the days where things feel really dark, I find myself talking to God a lot, like really intimate. I am working on the practice of always talking to God, but it's just so much easier when like it's dark, like the need for it is there. So I find myself in conversation with God quite a bit and also but really making a point to do things to take care of myself, to be kind, to be gentle. Because in those dark times, like they usually come about because I'm being really hard on myself, which is very common for type A women, and why, you know, earlier when you said as a coach, I'm very kind.
Yeah.
And not all coaches are. Like some of them are like, I'm gonna kick your butt and all this stuff, which is great. It's their style, and they have a certain they have a certain clientele that loves them. But what I bring to the table, and I think why I appeal to so many type women, is because I am type A. I get it. We beat the crap out of ourselves. And so we don't need another person to do that to us. We just need someone to hear us, hear what we have to say, call us on stuff, but without making us feel bad about it. So knowing that a lot of times the dark times come about because I'm being incredibly hard on myself, that when I find myself there, the thing to get myself back out of it is to be like, stop.
Be nice
to
yourself,
yourself.
Jodi.
Be very kind. Yeah.
I love that. Well, Jodi has so much to teach us. And you can connect with her in a lot of different ways. You should definitely check out her podcast, which is called Women Taking the Lead. I think I was episode 172 or something like that.
So, something glamorous.
She's some kind of glamorous 170
It was
number.
Amazing.
So definitely check out my podcast where I talk about when I got fired and humiliated. That was a great time. But it taught me so many lessons. And doing that podcast taught me so many lessons. So be sure to check that out. What's your website, by the way?
WomenTakingTheLead.com.
So we'll make sure to link that in the bottom so you can find Jodi. And you're on Facebook, you've got groups, you've got
everywhere.
An awesome Instagram feed that inspires me almost every day. So be sure to check those things out, and we will see you on the next Being Brave with Abbie McG. Thanks.